Bioshock, the hit immersive sim from 2007, has garnered a lot of fans in its time, and many of these fans take interest in certain iconic characters, such as Sander Cohen and Bridget Tenenbaum, and rightfully so. The game's characters all bring a unique value to the game. These characters played important roles in Rapture and were accredited for it with the titles of Rapture's Best and Brightest, but there is one character who does not get enough praise for her work within Rapture: Julie Langford. Renowned botanist Julie Langford was the main creator and maintainer of Arcadia, Rapture's garden, that supplied oxygen to the underwater city. On the surface, she worked as a professor at the University of California, Berkeley since the 1920s, which is where we can infer her research was based. This research gained both positive and negative responses, praise for her groundbreaking findings and reject for her radical theories. She also had worked under the United States government during World War II, assisting in defoliation projects such as the ones used at Iwo Jima.
Who says you can't teach an old hound new tricks? This batty plant woman spends 4 years coming up with ways to defoliate trees in the Pacific to scare out the Japs, and now here I am, down at the bottom of the Atlantic, trying to figure out how to do the same thing in reverse. Adam. It's bathtub gin times the atom bomb times Eve with a serpent. Let's go see what it can do.
Her lack of presence on the surface was clearly greatly felt, as the news clipping noted botanists still missing details of an intensive investigation going on to find her. So how does such an obviously large presence with such a high skill level get simply pushed aside in Rapture? Even though her work allowed oxygen supply to fill Rapture, she was somehow skipped over for the Best and Brightest title, not appearing in the image that includes the likes of Tenenbaum and Souchong, who both worked in other scientific fields. So why wasn't Julie? We know she was in Rapture at the time, as the news article regarding her disappearance is dated to 1949, whereas the Best and Brightest image is dated to 1952. My first interpretation was that as she and her work were under the contract of Ryan, he would be taking credit for it. However, after consideration, I believe this is not a credible interpretation, as many people in the image could have the same or similar said about them. Sander, whilst creating solo work, was esteemed in making propaganda for Ryan at his command, yet this propaganda was not attained to Ryan as his own creation. On top of this, both Souchong and Tenenbaum would have likely been under Fontaine's contractual agreements at the time for research into Adam, Eve and plasmids, yet this is all attributed to them. So what makes Julie different? Perhaps it's because Ryan believed Arcadia to be his genius, with no thought of his contract with Julie. In an audio diary found in Arcadia, Ryan claims to have sown the seeds of the area with complete disregard for Langford's work entirely. This also falls flat for the reasoning, however, as his statement may not have been literal but metaphorical, in reference to how he is the one who got the wheels turning by enlisting Julie's help.
On the surface, I once bought a forest. The parasites claimed that the land belonged to God and demanded that I establish a public park there. Why? So the rabble could stand slack-jawed under the canopy and pretend that it was paradise earned. When Congress moved to nationalize my forest, I burnt it to the ground. God did not plant the seeds of this Arcadia. I did.
So what is the reason? After scouring the internet for a while, I found nothing. No one asking, no one answering, meaning the answer is up to complete interpretation. However, I do believe it is likely that the team who created the poster may have simply forgotten Julie and her impact on Rapture. The Rapture's Best and Brightest poster does not appear until Bioshock 2, and features prominent characters from the game Gilbert Alexander and Sophia Lamb. Whilst it's a shame that Julie was likely forgotten, it makes sense as they had a new game and new characters to be focusing on, and Julie does not have a narrative relevance within Bioshock 2 to have been brought up. However, on the off chance that her absence from the image is intentional, I do have a theory as to why. We can see clearly that Julie is not the only big name left out of the photo. For example, Steinman, whilst completely insane, did make advancements in his craft. Even before his crazed fall to Adam, he was renowned in Rapture for his surgical work, with advertisements littered everywhere. This is relevant, as whilst their work is completely different, Steinman and Langford's work do share a similarity. Their work simply allows life to continue as is. People on the surface were getting plastic surgery the same way people in Rapture were. People on the surface needed air the same way that those in Rapture did. Both of their works simply allowed people's regular patterns in life to continue. But what did the surface not have? Plasmids, Adam, Eve. I don't entirely like this conclusion, as I truly believe Langford deserved more praise for allowing Rapture to have an ecosystem and oxygen under the sea, as to create that is a groundbreaking feat no matter how regular requiring oxygen is. It also does not entirely count for Cohen. However, art has its own uses and purposes under objectivism that I'm happy to put his spot in the best and brightest down to. If anything, it just shows the gross ignorance Ryan had attained from getting too deep into his philosophy. If the right of life is the source of all rights, Ryan may be willfully ignorant to the fact that his right to breathe is not on his own terms, but on Langford's skill. Julie deserved better. She may not be in the image, but she is truly one of Rapture's best and brightest. It takes a high skill level and a lot of willpower to create Franken trees under the sea, where the feat should have been impossible. She's truly underrated, and her work in Rapture deserved a lot more praise than it ever got, especially in regards to the best and brightest. Thanks for watching this video. I'm happy to hear any criticism, feedback or responses you have in the comment section.